Well, hello viewers, and welcome back to Kathy and Tarla through Interconnectedness of Food. And we're here tonight speaking to you about, food, interconnectedness of food. But last time what we were speaking about was the, just some quick changes that you can make to both substituting in what you are eating, like the meal you're cooking, as well as just what some quick things that you can have in your pantry that will really just lead you towards better nutrition, healthier lifestyle and all that. So Tarla, right, I have my question for you tonight for us to explore is what's some quick changes you can make in food preparation? And the obvious one is don't boil or fry things in oil, but so moving on from that, what's some other changes in how you prepare food that would really help support a healthier lifestyle? So support a healthier lifestyle and all of that sort of stuff.
Okay, no, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, this is it's a big topic. Feel free to sort of ask questions as we go along. I mean, I think this is a really interesting topic personally, because I think how we prepare food really does influence how available the nutrient is in it, whether we've destroyed the nutrients or whether we've actually released, allowed the nutrients to be available to the body, and things like that. So it's, to me, been very interesting journey to learn about, particularly how some traditional cultures prepared food, because to me that's a very good guide as to how we should be looking at it, because often I think in today's society we're after quick preparation methods, quick production methods, and in a lot of cases historically things took a lot more time. We've spoken last time about the sourdough bread and how it needs days of fermentation time to really, I guess, be made in a way that has the maximum benefit and that is sort of more aligned with the traditional methods. So actually some of the things sorry
I was just going to say, you fired off quite a few things there, and all I was going to say is, look, the traditional people is, really, I look at them and I go, they're really quite healthy, so they've got to be doing something right. So, sorry, and the fermenting stuff. So that's, you've taken me through that before. So I interrupted you there, so let's just keep going on. I got quite excited.
What you said about traditional cultures, I think being generally healthy, that is, I guess, if they're following their traditional lifestyle. And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of examples where they've changed their diet to, I'm going to say, a more Western sort of style diet, and have had a terrible, I guess, increase in a lot of lifestyle diseases and other health complaints. So there's sort of definitely a caution in that about what we currently do, but it can be appealing to people, I guess, if they haven't, it's different to a traditional lifestyle. But that's a different topic.
Different topic, yes, we have lots of topics, I
know. But some things I guess I'd just like to talk about tonight is preparing things like nuts, seeds, and grains and legumes. We're often told these are really good things for our health. We should have more whole grains, or we should, have more legumes, beans, whatever. And there's certainly, I guess, some food types that do require some preparation to have the maximum health benefit. So basically, all these substances, all these food groups contain substances which interfere with the body's ability to absorb the nutrients in them, which is why in traditional cultures, they generally went through a process of preparing the food before they actually ate it. So basically, in a nutshell, they contain phytic acid, which inhibits the mineral absorption in the body. So
what, sorry?
While that's phytic acid.
Okay.
So by soaking.
So soaking gets that out?
So soaking it or souring and activating or activating your nuts and seeds or beans and legumes and grains assists in breaking that down, basically makes the foods easy to digest and makes the nutrients more bioavailable. So it's sort of like, I understand to be the plant's natural sort of defense mechanism against getting eaten, historically by animals, to make it hard to digest if, without a process of preparation.
Well, I guess to make it harder to, that would be the animal's way of trying to get that you could at least poop out the seed so they can be distributed somewhere else.
not an expert in that area, but yes, it could be.
Well, I was just suddenly thinking of that. What is it? Argan oil for your hair, and the
Okay.
that comes through from the some goats eat some
Okay.
fruit, and then they but you only get the argan oil from the seed that's been processed through the stomach. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. But that's not about eating. But yes, back to no. It's just interesting that you're talking about the nuts there, because we did touch on that last week, and you told me some things about soak and activate your nuts, and then you should eat them within a certain amount of time. I went, oops.
Well, I think as we've said, sort of today's society, it's particularly if you buy nuts that are already out of their, dehulled out of their shells and things, then it's hard to know how long they have already been exposed, I guess, to atmosphere and things like that. But I guess what I personally do with things like nuts and seeds, so particularly say almonds, I do it with sunflower seeds, pepitas, I do it with walnuts as well, is it's quite simple just to sort of cover them with warm water overnight, and that basically neutralizes that acid, many of the enzyme sort of inhibitors that are on the nuts and seeds, and then also add some salt. So that actually helps with activating enzymes that deactivate the inhibitors. So basically those two steps.
So is it salt in the water, or water, fresh water,
so it's
drain, and
warm
then salt?
water?
Warm water?
No, warm water and salt in the water together.
Okay.
And then just leave that, say for example overnight, or 12 hours or something like that. And that will then, then you can either eat the nuts and seeds as they are, rinse them off and eat them. Or what I do is generally dehydrate them after that. So basically remove some of that water content again, and then I generally stick them in the freezer for storage, just so they don't break down any further. Or
okay, that was the part. That's the part.
Keeps them as fresh as possible. Yeah, as fresh as possible. Don't worry, my mother keeps a little plastic container of dried nuts and seeds in her car the whole time, and swears by it as her snack if she's out and about. And these nuts sit in the plastic container in the hot sun, for I don't know how long, and I cringe when I see that, but it's working for her. So
well, I think it's look, some of the other stuff that I've been looking into, and we won't speak about it this week, but detoxing and cleansing, and one of the things I discovered about that was the fact that it's lots of little tiny little things, like what we're doing we age because it's what we're really doing through food, and I guess society as well, but mainly through food, and how modern society has set us up is tiny little paper cuts every day about what we're doing to our body. So it doesn't look wrong having the nuts in the thing, because it cures the immediate problem of feeling hungry, but then you've just stuffed plastic toxins into you and nut mold or whatever else like that. And it's like, and you go, oh, I didn't die. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't today.
Well, honestly, my parents are very healthy people, so much as some of their practices might not be what I would do, they're doing something right, so I can't be too critical.
That's true, yes, but if we all did it in the way that we should be doing it, we might be living to 1,000 years, not 100 years. So anyway.
Well, maybe.
And looking beautiful, young, gorgeous and beautiful, and not like E.T. Like, I don't want to live to 1,000 and look like E.T. So
let's agree on that then.
If I'm going to live to 1,000, I'm going to look stunning the entire time. So okay, back to
in order to do that, darling.
Yes, in order to do that, back to our nuts. Sorry, I keep sidetracking you. But,
no, that's sort of like just a brief overview on, I guess, a method you can use for nuts and seeds. And I guess you sort of prefaced our conversation with quick fixes. Some of these are not quick fixes. I guess they're beneficial, but people have to choose again the capacities, as we've sort of spoken about before as well.
Yeah, I guess it's this is probably more getting into not necessarily a quick fix to how you prepare food, but how you can plan a little bit and change. So if people out there have a meal plan for the week, which is not me,
Yeah.
But if you do have a meal plan for the week, then that means that, you know, Tuesday night you can put your nuts on to soak so that
Yes.
Wednesday
Yep.
you can have something or other. Now, one of the other things you
Yep.
mentioned as well was sprouting. So nuts and seeds,
Mhm.
you know, I'm thinking of those little snow peas or stuff that you get. So is it
Yep.
just all of those things that you're talking about?
In terms of the method I've just described, or
Yeah. Well, benefits of sprout. Like, why have something sprouted? Like, I mean, I guess it's just giving you different things in your salads or something like that. But what is the benefit of something that's just been freshly sprouted as opposed to, I don't know, a lettuce or something like that, or the actual plant itself?
So generally, the nutrients are far more available, and there's generally a lot more nutrient in those in the sprouts. But it's just yet another thing that you do have to be a little bit cautious of, because you're not often there's certain types of sprouts that you probably shouldn't eat raw. And alfalfa sprouts apparently are some of those, in terms of that raw sprouted grains and alfalfa seeds, for example, are not recommended, because tests have shown that they basically inhibit the immune system and can contribute to inflammatory conditions in the body.
Wow.
I guess it's not an automatic assumption that everything sprouted is great. And this is why, we're dealing with complex topics, and that's why people simplify to me conversations about food and what you should eat. To me, doesn't provide enough information to actually, I guess, guide people sometimes in terms of the detail of things.
Well, I guess look, sprouting, I would have just assumed that something sprouting is good for you, so that's a real eye-opener for me on the sprouting.
Well, it's basically saying that generally, say raw sprouted grains, they actually contain irritating substances to stop animals from eating them, more or less as a sort of an evolutionary thing. So you should just generally eat them lightly steamed, or throw them into a casserole, or add them just to a soup. So it's still got the good stuff, but not necessarily eating too much of it raw. So that's again another sort of food preparation or
I think what it is coming down to it almost like a bit of planning ahead. And you don't really have to look. I'm getting from all of because one of the things that it just keeps boiling down to continuously for me is fresh is best. And I guess that touches on another topic that we were talking about, which we can talk about more in detail, but food storage and distribution, which is, how long has your food actually been sitting in the freezer and all of that sort of stuff. Now, I did go down that path for a reason, which I completely forgot. But okay, well, I'll move on from that. If it comes back to me, I'll pick it up again. One of the other things, like I've gone and spent some time with you to do fermenting, which has different, I guess, benefits. Can you just take us through some of those fermenting? Is that what we can talk about that one? Yeah,
of course. Yep. No, there's definitely another food preparation technique that's very prevalent in traditional cultures. Most cultures have some manner of fermented food in their traditional diets. So definitely very good generally for your gut health. It provides a lot of beneficial bacteria and enzymes and things like that to the body. So it's something that there's a lot of different ways to do it. A lot of different foods can be fermented. So something I guess I encourage people to experiment with, and with anything, there's a lot of probably guidance out there on the internet and things like that about how to make particular fermented products. Like a lot of people have, common ones people have heard of generally things like the sauerkraut or the kimchi or miso and things like this. But certainly there's a lot of benefit to I'm a big fan of the Western Price Foundation, and they have a book called Nourishing Traditions, which I love because it talks a lot about how traditional cultures used to prepare food, and they're very, very big on fermenting milk products. So again, a lot of us probably know things like yogurt, sour cream, and things like that. but historically used to be fermented cheeses, and even things like buttermilk and things like that go through some sort of fermentation process. And I guess the benefit is just using milk as the example, is that it starts to break down the milk proteins, which can be very difficult for a lot of people to digest. So people can sometimes tolerate fermented milk products much better than, say, a raw dairy or a.
And again, that's just like the nuts and the soaking. It's just starting to break down those enzymes and that in the product itself, so that you can digest it more easily.
Yeah, and basically access the nutrient more easily, I think, in the body.
Yeah.
And get the benefits of, I guess, the gut health and things like that that come with all the enzymes that the live bacteria and live cultures that are used for fermenting.
Yeah.
So, I've sort of had, I guess, done some very simple fermenting with just milk kefir grains. And so literally just have to add milk and leave it on the bench generally for a day or so, depending on your temperature and your climate and things like that. And then it gets sort of it can separate, and the whey is very good to be good to use for things like, say, your sauerkraut, or to actually use to ferment other fruits and vegetables and things like that. So that's
keep going.
So I mean, go back to our milk example, like both the vitamin B and the vitamin C content increase during the fermentation processes. So it's actually increasing the nutritional value of what you're eating, as well as making it, so I guess, easier to break down for your gut and things like that.
Interesting.
So yes, there's a lot of historical cultures relied on different fermented products for for nutrition, and you get on things like to store foods and things like that, in terms of preserving food for other times of the year, or we did in the era before refrigerators and things like that. We had to rely on these other methods to sort of store food. So
you've touched on two things that I want to go into a little bit. So hopefully I remember the second one after we go through the first one. The kefir, that's the milk fermentation. Yes. So I had a go at that when you took me through fermenting, and I did it for a while, which is great, except I was the only one who actually ate it, and then I just had fermented milk products coming out of my ears, and then I think I let it separate and it died. And I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't happy about that either. So, I'm a single person at home. Is there a way to have your thing and keep it alive, but not keep it producing continuously? Or is that just something that you have to live with?
You've got to keep feeding the culture, so it needs a source of sugars generally. So it's the lactose in the milk that gets broken down, I guess, as the energy source. So
can you freeze it?
Runs out of. I'm not sure. I think you can with some cultures.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried it with the kefir grains.
Maybe
but there's definitely other.
Yeah,
I believe there's definitely other fermented products that you can freeze, and then I guess take them out when you're ready to use them.
Because it's great. It's just that for me it was like, I don't want to eat cottage cheese every day. You know what I mean? Or have it, and it just kept chugging away. And the first couple of days it was fine, but then I was like, I don't want to eat it today.
No, I understand. I've had the same experience. But I guess I was trying to use it, say, instead of yogurt in some, use it on the porridge, or put a bit on Abby's breakfast when I still had it and things like that. So I don't know, it's going to depend on everyone's personal circumstances to, whether you make smaller quantities or.
Yeah, well, I thought I was making small quantities, but it was just continuous. It just kept going. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts as to how to manage that, because that's for me was the biggest turn off about fermenting, is that I had to once I started, I had to keep going, and it's almost like people then shared it with everybody else, so that by the time they ran out and got annoyed with it and didn't do it, and then they wanted it again, they could just go to somebody else. To me it was almost like passing the flame on, and by the time the flame came back around to me, I can deal with making some more of this again.
Yeah.
That's
I think it's that's
so I have,
everyone's personal preference, but
well, it just makes it hard in this day. And you know, our topic tonight was about, you know, some simple or easy things to do. And it's like, well, I mean, certainly for fermenting, it's like you almost have, you know, there is a whole cottage industry around keeping that whole fermenting thing going. But on the other side, the coin, and I know I asked this about you when we were talking about fermenting once before, but another thing that you hear often about, and people do a lot of, is pickling or, you know, jamming and all of that sort of stuff, which is a, you know, for me, that probably came about more so because in summer they have an overabundance of tomatoes or something like that, so that how to keep them for when you don't have tomatoes. So, but what would be the differences between, or the health benefits between fermenting and pickling, like, or is there not? And I'll probably take me off.
Good question, and I'm not 100% sure, so I better not. I'm not 100% sure. I think pickling, to me, I guess just my personal association with it is often it's putting things in vinegar and something like that as the preservative, whereas say a lacto fermented method of preserving uses the whey from, say, you know, from your milk heifer or something like that, and it basically converts the starches and sugars into lactic acid, which is then the natural preservative. So I think pickling is just a different method. You know, you probably still achieve a means of preserving food. But
I mean, it was certainly used
different, I think.
I mean, look at the old folks. You know, like in the past, they used that too. As I said, is to preserve of food, the overabundance of food, so that when they didn't have it. So I had forgotten the second question, but it was to do with the old timers' way with preserving food. And so is there any other, I mean, I guess on that topic, is the ideas that you have for, you know, if you've got an overabundance in your garden, because we touched on it earlier about food being transported and how it loses its nutritional value, and that is a whole other, you know, storage and distribution of food is a whole nother topic, so we won't get into that. But you know, picking things straight from your garden, there's so much benefit about having that. And so, you know, I mean, I guess that's probably a quick changes to food preparation is pick as much as you can from your garden.
Well, I mean, I think it's again really great when people I'm going to say are motivated to try to, I guess, utilize all of their produce when it's available, and I guess look into things like you know, canning and bottling and fermenting and things like that as a way to, I guess, preserve the harvest. And you know, in some cases you can make a lot of different products, like, you know, just using tomatoes as the example, you might make some fermented tomato ketchup and some tomato salsa, and you know, there's sort of, doesn't all just have to be, I guess, a bottle of tomatoes or something like that that's sitting there waiting to be used or something like that. And I think, I guess, in terms of I think you did my fermentation workshop a few years ago. There's a lot of different so many different ways, I guess, I hadn't fully appreciated myself. There's so many different things. You make into a chocolate slice, you know, you can make you know, you can make fermented dried fruit and things like that is sort of you know, I guess there's so much more than just your traditional sauerkrauts and things like that, which some people might not like to eat or might not, you know, find pleasant, I guess, for their palate. You know, it's, I don't like some of it, I have to admit. It's you know, it's not my favorite thing.
Well, I must admit, at the fermenting workshop, it was great because you also had a not only did you take us through fermenting some fruit as well as vegetables, which with the sauerkraut, but also you had a range of things that was available, so we all tasted that. And I found it, you know, when I went through and ate it the first time, my first little run through, I thought, oh yeah, this is okay, but nothing to write home about. And I found myself going back again and again and again. And obviously I must have needed it because I wanted it. And and I wouldn't necessarily say that the taste grew on me, but it was all, if you step out of the day-to-day, and I was probably eating really bad food at that time then, so it was really yummy, and maybe that's why my body wanted it. But if I stepped out of you know, each piece of food was individually beautiful, okay, and I'd wanted to do it, but then I went, oh my God, I have to ferment this and do that. But not only that, is the taste was beautiful but distinctly different. So it's almost like going, I don't know, from Italian pasta to I don't know, fresh Chinese food or something like that. You know, it was completely different taste. And you're laughing at me, I know.
Yeah.
And
no, I was waiting to see where that was going.
I was like trying to just think of something else that's like, because I was thinking of pasta with a lot of meats and cheeses and that sort of stuff. And I was thinking I was thinking of you know, the Asian foods and the I don't know, you know, the they have a lot of soy and all of that. And I wouldn't necessarily say that anything's fermented or anything like that, but really what I'm saying is just such a distinct, different food. And then I had kids that just arced up completely about, you know, we're not eating that taste. So, you know, it is lovely, but it is almost a lifestyle as well, isn't it? If you're
I think so, yes.
having that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of an acquired taste, and we're probably less I'm guessing even as a child, we weren't really exposed to it very much. We didn't really have a lot of pickles or have a lot of sauerkraut or anything like that, and certainly not in our house. And so I think it's a bit of an acquired taste that you know, that you can certainly develop a taste for, but some people it's not part of, you know, it hasn't been part of their sort of their childhood or their life to date. But I mean, I think some of these foods, they're really beneficial even in just small amounts. So it's not like you have to eat a bucket load of something to get benefit. And so, you know, I guess for me, I'm like, well, it doesn't have to taste like chocolate for me to eat it, you know, and if I know it's doing something good for my health and things like that. And and you're not having a large quantity, and but there's a lot of things that are really, you know, you can get super delicious, you know, mixes of things. And I found that the sauerkraut was something I was like, actually, I really like that. You know, I'm not so fussed on probably the spicier things like the kimchi and things like that, but you know, it's just
like I said, I liked everything that you had made. Actually, it was just more so that changing my whole, you know, in order to continually making that all the time for my house just wasn't going to be very practical. But I think to come back to you know, quick changes in food preparation and things like that is moving forwards. If people are genuine about, you know, having good nutrition is a lifestyle change, and what we're really talking about is what's some little things that you can make and then start adding to over time, so that you're going from whatever you're doing now into something better. So you know, it'd be something like, well, make sauerkraut because it's easy to make and stick in your fridge and leave there forever. And then make sure that one meal a week has sauerkraut in it. And you know, it's a great thing. I actually had it, I'd made some more, by the way, but I had it the other day. I had for lunch, I had a nice little piece of salmon with sauerkraut, and actually I like salt on sauerkraut, I must confess, but I didn't have anything else, so I had the sauerkraut and beetroot and tomato, and it was absolutely beautiful. And
good.
you know, I adore salmon with a bit of like creamy sauce over the top of it, but I didn't even have that to do that. So but the salmon with the sauerkraut was actually really nice as well. So
good.
You know, like that's one change I've made. But you know, moving forwards, if people are going to have I think, you know, probably the first change, if you want a very first simple change, I'm getting from this discussion, is we spoke earlier about the first change is to think about why you're eating, what you eat, you know, just observing why you're eating. But I think the next change to make is to actually just plan the menu. you know.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
Plan a menu, and then that means that you can, you know, go, okay, well, at least once a week I'm going to have some sort of fermented food. And you know, nuts, soaked nuts is lovely, so that's, you know, I'll always have soaked nuts, you know, having sprouted foods or something like that. So just, you know, one meal a week having fermented, and one meal a week having, you know, something else that you've talked about tonight, to me would be a really great sort of first step for people, is just plan a menu and have something once a week.
No, that's, well, it's an absolutely vital point that you've made, that healthy eating is a lifestyle choice, and you do have to be perhaps more prepared than some people might have been in the past. There's a few other things I'm just going to touch on, things like preparing legumes and beans and grains. Should really be sort of, you can actually ferment them overnight, and that, similarly to sort of the nuts and seeds, is going to help release the nutrients and deactivate the compounds that sort of prevent that absorption and digestion and things like that.
So when you
that's
say
another thing.
The beans and legumes, the fermenting is just for water?
So
or is it
one method, the lacto fermentation method, would be you put an acid, generally with a cultural acid. So you'd put it in your, you know, you cover it with water, your filtered water, and then you'd add, you know, say some of your whey from your milk kefir, or some cases things like just apple cider vinegar or something like that. Because it's the acid that sort of assists with breaking down, I think, some of the things. So and really that's sort of, you know, with the legumes and traditional ways of preparing things like curries, in some cases is definitely to soak you're soaking the legumes before you're actually cooking them, or, you know, beans, you're soaking your beans before you actually sort of cook them and things like that, and that makes them a lot more nutritious, and often helps things like the flatulence some people experience when they eat some of these foods. It's meant to, still hits me sometimes, but, you know, it's
I can't say it ever happens to me, but nobody's here to deny me anyway. Actually, you're saying soaking. I don't soak rice before I do it, but I go, what's the point in this? And is that also, you know, you talked about soaking grains and legumes and that sort of stuff. Is that something that I should be doing? Like, if I want it rice, I should potentially soak it the night before? Or is it we just process the citrus?
I think I did read something today when I was sort of looking at some of my books that I think suggested that, that rice could be done in the same way.
Or is it just because white rice is so processed it really doesn't matter? Or topic for another
day. Whatever I looked at didn't sort of talk about the different types of rice. But I mean, I do it with things like quinoa is a really, really easy one to sort of, it actually sprouts really quickly within a few hours. You can see a little quinoa starts getting a little spiral growing out of it, which is kind of cool. But you know, it's sort of, I think that it's, you know, things like really simple things are things like, if you eat porridge, if you want to eat porridge the next morning, soak your oats overnight, you know, stick them in your saucepan, leave it on the stove for the night, covered in water, you know, stuff like that. So that's just that doesn't require days of preparation, just requires, you know, generally just a little bit of forethought the night before.
So I'm guessing by that you say I should chuck out my 2-minute oats and get good oats.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so step number 3 is to chuck out the quick fix ones. Yes.
Well, I mean, a lot of breakfast cereals, you know, I guess according to sort of the Nourishing Traditions book that I like, it says, you know, you really shouldn't be having all the processed breakfast cereals. You can make different porridges from different, you know, grains and things like that, and they should all be sort of soaked overnight with a pinch of salt. You know, ideally add a bit of fermented food, like a bit of whey, a bit of yogurt, a bit of you know, buttermilk or kefir, and that just, you know, ferments it as well as breaking down that phytic acid. So just adding to that benefit. Because I mean, commercial cereals, they're really, you know, they're extrusion processes which make them all into these lovely little, you know, shapes and things that we see are basically destroying most of the nutrients, you know, making the oils turn rancid and, you know, make certain proteins toxic. So sort of not much of a value in that.
Yeah, so it looks like we're doing good stuff by having good oil, but you know, technically, if it's been processed the shit out of it, then it probably is useful as eating the cardboard at the very least. Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. So, what else do you have?
No, that's just. Oh, it's just. I mean, yeah. There's so many different things. You know, things like soybeans. You know, they should only be eaten after they've been fermented, because they are high in the phytic acid, and they, you know, contain some sort of enzyme inhibitors that aren't deactivated just by normal cooking. So, you know, there's a lot of traditional fermented soy products like your soy sauce, natto, miso, tempeh, you know, things like this. So I guess just as an aside, we were talking, I think, previously about looking at labels and trying to understand, I guess, whether foods have been prepared in a traditional method, you know, manner or not. You know, we used sourdough as the example. You know, has it been, you know, fermented for 3 days, or has it just been sort of, you know, much shorter periods to get the result quicker, you know? Yeah. But I think that's something that, you know, I would say just check for in terms of when you're buying soy products as well. You know, traditional methods of making soy sauce. I saw something on once is, you know, I think it's literally years of, you know, putting them in a big wooden cask and tending to it. Actually, well, you know, which is.
I've seen in China they have the fermented tea as well, which is I think they stick it in a cow horn and bury it for a year or something like that.
Oh golly, okay.
Yeah, maybe, and apparently it's really different, but I don't know. I mean, that sounds to me like leave the tea bag in long enough.
I don't know. I can't comment on that.
Yeah, no, it's some very high pricey tea, and it's because it's fermented, but it has to go in a cow horn and then be buried. And
oh golly.
Yeah, so apparently it's the guy was, I mean, I'm dubious as to whether it would taste anything different from, you know, very strongly soaked tea, but the point is that you can even have so
yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, that's it has opened my eyes to all the different things that you can do in terms of getting fermented products and things like that, to sort of have that in your diet at least.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's just in general good to get things from a variety of sources, so you're getting different, you know, different nutrients, different composition of sort of the beneficial bacteria and things like that. So
I think probably all the things about fermenting and pickling and all of this sort of stuff is they're all very not acidic, alkaline. But today's society is very acidic because all the fats and everything are all very acidic stuff. So I guess the benefits of these things as well is that if you start alkalizing your body, then you're going to start counteracting the, you know, I've got extra weight, so starting to alkalize my body through, touched on it earlier, and we'll go on to it in another topic at some point in more detail, but detoxing and cleansing is just, you know, just starting to get rid of all of this stuff that's this, you know, the way we eat now has, you know, contributed to where I'm at, as well as, you know, lifestyle, which is not moving a lot and all that sort of stuff. But thankfully, this topic that I'm talking to you about is not about exercising, because I would be watching you do it. I'm not currently ready to be inspired to be really back to exercising as much as I used to as a youth. So, but I am currently inspired to change my food habits.
Yeah. Well, take it one step at a time.
Exactly. So, look, there's a few things that we've touched on tonight, and I will try to put it in the notes for everybody about what we'll talk about in other sessions and all of that sort of stuff. But just wanted to wrap up and go back to what I spoke about earlier, in that, you know, first step in changing your lifestyle for better nutrition and better health is just to observe what you're eating. I mean, there's a lot of things to do, but we're talking about food. Is observe what you're eating and why you're eating it, and just simply that observation. And then the second thing, you know, it's really coming to the point that it is about planning your meal, planning what you're going to be eating, and when you're eating it, and then you know, look to add in some of these things that, you know, Tarla's talked about. Well, Tarla, you are Tarla. You know, fermenting, soaking. You know, take a little bit of time, and it's not really adding time, it's just being pre-prepared.
That's right. Yeah, generally,
yeah. And look, we all have jobs, well, most of us have jobs that we go to and get paid for, but even if we don't, if we're at home, is, you know, and you're looking after a child, you still have to be thinking ahead so that you can have the food in place for when the baby's hungry or whatever like that. So it's the same thing for us, I think. If we respecting ourselves, it's just a little bit of thinking ahead and adding some one or two things. So the topic of tonight was really what's food prep. So that's my take on it, Tarla. I know you've agreed with me, but
no, I do. I really think it's a really good really good advice. I've said before about just having that forethought and planning, and it's something that I could definitely do better as well. And I will say that some of the things, like say if you do want to soak and dehydrate your nuts and seeds, I do that in batches, and then I just stick in the freezer. So I'm not trying to do it every day. I'm not trying to do it twice a week. I'll probably do it once every 2 or 3 weeks, or so it takes a little bit of time at that point, but then otherwise it should be, that's available for me to then use
and I guess
times. So
from the topic that we spoke about last time, was it's like that's the now a thing you can add to your pantry, which is I've soaked nuts for the month or for the next 4 weeks. So then they're available to your menu plan for the next 4 weeks as well. Look, this has been great, Tarla, and as always is we just keep opening up lots of little rabbit holes, which we've been diligent not running down. I know I can go off topic quite easily, and you've been very good at pulling me back on topic. So look, thank you very much for speaking, and we will speak again about some more really interesting things about just how food's interconnected to us all. So everyone, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and if you haven't already, and come and join us on the journey. See you.
Goodbye.